Producing a TV show that's continuously satisfying is no easy feat, given that it requires showrunners and producers to deliver as many as 24 episodes per year to insatiable audiences. It goes without saying that failures are near inevitable, and practically every TV series in existence has had episodes, or even entire seasons, that just fall a little short of the mark. Sometimes these offenses are egregious enough that those in charge actually attempt to deliver a thinly veiled on-screen apology to loyal fans, whether course-correcting a wonky subplot, killing off a much-loathed character, or in more extreme instances, literally retconning dead characters back into existence. It's always risky when a show blatantly draws attention to its own creative failings, but it can also serve as an olive branch to fans, to remind them that yes, the people in charge are listening, and sometimes things just don't go as well as planned. Whether or not these apologies actually pulled each of these series out of the doldrums, they nevertheless tried their darndest to address creative issues which many viewers took major umbrage with. I'm Jess from Whatculture. These are 10 TV episodes that were blatant apologies. Number 10. Repilot Community. After enjoying 3 seasons under the steady hand of showrunner Dan Harmon, Community's 4th season saw Harmon relieved of his position following creative tensions with Sony Pictures Television. Despite their efforts, new showrunner team David Garascio and Moses Port couldn't disguise the colossal void left by Harmon, with season 4 amping up the ridiculous storylines, making the characters caricatures of themselves, and simply feeling like a creative enterprise desperately attempting to replicate Harmon's inimitable comic style. But Harmon was mercifully rehired for season 5, with its first episode being titled Repilot, and effectively serving as a table-resetting soft reboot for the series. Hilariously, and in Community's classic meta-storytelling style, Abed even makes numerous allusions to this fact, while Harmon's script more overtly apologizes to fans for the previous season by having Annie mention a gas leak which occurred the prior year. The implication was that all of the bizarre and out-of-character moments in season 4 were caused by a gas leak on campus, and that season 5 would represent a gas-free return to the beloved norm. If any TV show can get away with straight-up mocking its own flaws, it's definitely Community. Number 9. Yesterday's Enterprise, Star Trek The Next Generation. The first of 2 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation were wildly inconsistent, and one of its most baffling early episodes was season's 1's Skin of Evil, where Lieutenant Tasha Yar was unceremoniously killed off by the tar monster Armus. Despite Tasha Yar being a prominent character, her death came totally out of nowhere as a result of Crosby requesting a release from her contract for not receiving satisfactory screen time. But rather than getting a memorably dramatic demise, she ended up killed instantly by a psychokinetic blast with all the pomp of a red shirt day player. Season 3's Yesterday's Enterprise attempted to make this up to both fans and Crosby by bringing the actress back to play an alternate timeline of Tasha. Amusingly, upon learning of her lousy demise in the original timeline, Alt Tasha even calls the death senseless to Picard, and insists that if she needs to die, she wants it to count for something. The episode ends with Tasha embarking on a heroic suicide mission, giving the character a far more fitting end, at least until the season 5 premiere Redemption, which reveals she survived the suicide mission, became a Romulan sex slave, gave birth to a daughter, also played by Crosby, and was later executed. Woof. Even so, it successfully remedied Tasha's underwhelming flunky death in season 1. Number 8. Day 4, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., 24. By 24's 4th season, the show had come under increasing scrutiny for its depiction of Muslims, particularly the Muslim American Araz family, who turn out to be terrorists. The season's early episodes sparked a significant outcry from organizations such as the Council on American Islamic Relations, who felt that expressing such a sentiment mere years after 9/11 would only agitate prejudices and create a toxic, hateful atmosphere for Muslims living in America. Fox ended up meeting with the council, and star Kiefer Sutherland even recorded a pre-episode PSA to remind viewers that Muslims hate terrorism as much as everyone else. But Fox also made a more overt attempt to redress the balance in the season's 13th episode, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., where Jack Bauer finds himself teaming up with 2 Muslim American store owner brothers, Safa and Naji, to fend off a gang of mercenaries. With the brothers taking up arms with Jack and explaining they've been fighting racism their entire lives in America, it's a howlingly on-the-nose apology for the prior insensitivity, though actually a pretty fun set piece in its own right. Number 7. Blast from the Past, Dallas. Dallas's 8th season concluded in shocking fashion with Bobby Ewing being struck by a car and killed, a moment which left many fans intensely disappointed. As the writers struggled to fill the void left by his absence, Dallas's ratings took a violent dip in season 9, losing an average of more than 3 million viewers per episode compared to the previous season. Desperately scrambling to right the ship, the producers eventually reached out to bring Bobby back, resulting in the infamous season finale cliffhanger where Pam finds him alive and well in the shower. The 10th season premiere then reveals that the entire prior season had been Pam's dream, shamelessly retconning Dallas's big creative mistakes in the process. Even so, Dallas's ratings never improved, and with many expressing frustration that an entire season's worth of storytelling had effectively been wiped out in a single scene. Number 6. Ticket to Ride, Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf's 6th season finale Out of Time boasted an uncharacteristically dramatic cliffhanger ending, with Lister, Rimmer, Crichton, and Kat all being killed in an explosive battle against their future selves. Though the season ended with a to-be-continued title card, fans had to wait more than 3 agonizing years for the cliffhanger to be resolved, due to both personnel changes behind the scenes and Charles being falsely accused of sexual assault in '94. In order to appease fans infuriated by the lengthy wait, the season 7 premiere, Ticket to Ride, opened with Lister quickly explaining that they survived Starbug's destruction because it created a temporal paradox, that it would be logically impossible for their future selves to kill them. Lister quickly explains that time has reset to a point shortly before their deaths, at which point several jokes are made about the convoluted non-logic of their revival. Basically, the writers knew they'd written themselves into a corner and left fans hugely exasperated during the wait between seasons. So they essentially pressed the rewind button and restored the status quo as quickly as possible, logic be damned. Number 5. Scylla, Prison Break. Michael Scofield's lover Sarah Tancredi received a shocking and unexpected death in Prison Break's 3rd season episode, Good Fences, when her severed head turned up in a box. This was due to Callies and Fox failing to come to terms on a new contract, resulting in Sarah being written out and otherwise depicted with stand-in actresses. Fans were furious that a relationship they were invested in had been ripped away from them so aggressively, especially as it would have made more sense for Sarah to simply be kidnapped rather than given such a concrete send-off. But with the benefit of Prison Break being as ridiculous a show as it is, the season 4 premiere Scylla revealed that Sarah was indeed alive, and the severed head actually belonged to someone else. Yay? This wasn't even the only time Prison Break retconned a major character's death due to fan outcry, as Michael himself was brought back from the dead for the hilariously absurd 5th season. Number 4. Are You Dexter? There's no denying that Dexter ran totally off the rails in its later seasons, and one of the most divisive subplots occurred at the tail end of season 6, when Dexter's sister Deb realizes with the help of a therapist that she's in love with her brother. Fans were miffed not only by the needless ickiness of the plot, but how it just felt like a melodramatic distraction from the more compelling narrative and character elements. Thankfully, the widely acclaimed season 7 premiere Are You largely brushed the incestuous allusions under the carpet, by instead having Deb discover Dex's murderous secret, with the season generally proving to be a huge improvement over season 6. Yet the less said about the 8th, the better. Number 3. 20 Years to Life, Rosanne. Roseanne's 9th season, the last batch of episodes in its original run, was widely loathed by fans and critics alike, who felt that having the Connors win $108 million from the state lottery worked against the show's depiction of working class life. But the season finale, Into That Good Night, arguably made things worse, by revealing that the show had actually been an exaggerated fiction written by the real Roseanne. In reality, they didn't win the lottery, and her husband Dan died from his heart attack at the end of season 8. Bummer. When Rosanne was revived for a 10th season, the premiere took a well-placed pot shot at the misguided 9th season by opening with Rosanne struggling to wake up Dan, believing him to be dead. Hilariously, when Dan wakes up, wearing a sleep apnea mask no less, he knowingly quips, "Why does everyone always think I'm dead?" The episode also passingly throws out season 9's grim final monologue, reinstating the first 8 seasons as canon and basically course-correcting the beloved sitcom in the process. Given that the show continues to thrive in its sans Roseanne form The Connors, where Roseanne is revealed to have died from an opiate overdose after the actress made racist comments online, it's fair to say that the apology went down swimmingly with fans. Number 2. Exposé, Lost. The characters of Nikki and Paolo were introduced early in Lost's third season amid complaints that the series didn't show enough of Oceanic Flight 815's other survivors. Nikki and Paolo appeared in 14 of the season's episodes and were near universally loathed by fans, who generally found their antics annoying and their presence excessive, as if the writers were compensating for the absence of peripheral survivors in the first 2 seasons. And so, once showrunner Damon Lindelof caught wind of the online sentiment, he set about killing the pair off, as finally happened in the legendarily divisive episode Exposé. Rather than quickly killing them though, Lindelof had an entire episode devoted to their backstories before they were given the hilariously cruel and undeniably satisfying fate of being inadvertently buried alive. As far as apologies go, it was both needlessly elaborate and uncommonly self-deprecating of a showrunner to jettison disliked characters quite so aggressively. Number 1. You're Getting Old. South Park. By the time South Park's 15th season kicked off, it's fair to say the show had settled into a fairly complacent groove, dispensing a more comfortable and predictable brand of satire, which some fans and critics felt had lost its razor-sharp edge. In an interview published on the eve of season 14's premiere, creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker called working on the show a nightmare, which many fans interpreted as the duo being creatively burned out, hence the lukewarm quality of the last few seasons. This was confronted head-on in season 15's unforgettable episode, You're Getting Old, where Stan turns 10 years old and develops an overpowering sense of cynicism, viewing the world around him as though it's made of literal shit. The episode was widely interpreted as an expression of Stone and Parker's own creative dissatisfaction, effectively an animated mea culpa, which also remains one of the show's best regarded episodes to date. Though South Park's quality has remained wildly inconsistent ever since, it nevertheless must have been cathartic for the pair to spill their guts in such a disarming and unique way.